The tribunal chamber stretched vast and cold, its obsidian walls reflecting the bioluminescent patterns of the 12 council members who sat in judgment. Commander Alara Knox stood at attention, her uniform crisp despite the weight of what she was about to do. Beside her, barely reaching her hip, stood Ruun. The Kirval cub's fur rippled with anxious chromatic shifts, pale blues bleeding into grays, betraying every emotion his young mind couldn't yet control. His 4 eyes darted between the towering council members, each representing a different species in the galactic concordate. At 6 cycles old, Ruun should have been celebrating his ascension ceremony, the ritual that would mark him as a full member of Kirval society. Instead, he stood accused. "The measurements are conclusive," droned Magister Veloke, his crystalline form refracting light into cold spectrums. "The specimen designated Ruun falls below the minimum physical standards established for Kirval development. Neural density, 42% below average. Muscle mass, insufficient. Projected adult height, barely 7 feet. The council has no choice but to invoke Protocol 17. Alara's jaw tightened. Protocol 17, the Concordate's clinical term for what amounted to exile a child deemed unfit, would be removed from their family, their people, and sent to a remedial colony where they would live out their days in isolation, never permitted to reproduce, never acknowledged as true members of their species. She had seen this before, on other worlds, with other species. The Concordate prized genetic perfection, optimal development, projected utility. Those who fell short were discarded like faulty equipment. Ruun's primary guardian, the massive warrior Thekvar, stood across the chamber, his own fur locked in the rigid gray of enforced stoicism. His family had served the Kirval military caste for 17 generations. To protest the council's judgment would mean dishonor not just for him, but for every ancestor whose name he carried. His silence was expected. His compliance, mandatory. But Alara Knox was human. And humans had a talent for finding loopholes in systems designed to be absolute. "Permission to speak, Magisters," she said, her voice cutting through the chamber's oppressive quiet. The council members shifted, their various forms of communication creating a susurrus of disapproval. Humans were still relatively new to the Concordat, barely 3 generations since first contact. They held ranks, yes, but their opinions on matters of genetic fitness were considered quaint at best, dangerously sentimental at worst. "The human may speak," Magister Veloke allowed, his tone suggesting it was a courtesy he could easily revoke. Alara placed her hand on Ruun's shoulder. The cub's fur immediately shifted to a warm amber, the color of trust, of hope. It nearly broke her heart. "I've served in the Concordate Defense Fleet for 12 years. She began. "I've held the rank of commander for 4. In that time, I've worked alongside 73 different species, commanded vessels with crews numbering in the thousands, and participated in first contact protocols with 16 previously unknown civilizations. Your service record is adequate," Veloke interrupted. "But irrelevant to this proceeding." "It's entirely relevant," Alara countered, "because in all that time, all those missions, I've learned something the Council seems to have forgotten. Measurements don't predict worth, numbers don't capture potential, and genetic projections are just that, projections, not prophecies." She turned to face Thekvar, whose eyes widened slightly at her audacity. "Your son scored 42% below average in neural density. Do you know what humans scored when we were first evaluated for Concordate membership?" The chamber fell silent. 78% below Kirval baseline. 61% below Velkarian baseline. Our muscle density was laughable. Our natural lifespans were considered tragically short. Our technology was primitive. By every measurement your council used, humans should have been classified as a remedial species, barely worthy of contact, much less membership. Magister Veloke's crystalline structure darkened. "The human species proved itself through adaptation," Alara said firmly. "Through innovation. Through the sheer stubborn refusal to accept that our limitations defined our potential. We didn't meet your standards, so we changed what standards could mean." She knelt beside Ruun, meeting all 4 of his eyes. "This cub is 6 cycles old. He hasn't even begun to discover what he's capable of. And you want to exile him because he doesn't fit a statistical model? Because his body doesn't match a predetermined template? The protocols exist to maintain species integrity. Another council member spoke, a Valkyrian whose biomechanical augmentations whirred softly. Deviation from optimal development leads to weakness, inefficiency, eventual degradation of the genetic line. Humanity's entire existence is deviation from optimal development, Alara replied, standing. We're pursuit predators on a planet that should have killed us. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, extinction events. Not because we were genetically perfect, but because we were genetically flexible. Our weakness became our strength. She turned back to the council, her expression hard. Rune isn't a deviation to be corrected. He's an adaptation waiting to happen, and if this council is too blind to see that, then I want no part of it. Alara reached up and unpinned the rank insignia from her collar, the silver star that marked her as commander, that represented over a decade of service, sacrifice, and honor. She placed it on the floor before the council bench. I hereby resign my commission in the Concordat Defense Fleet, effective immediately. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even Thekvar's stoic facade cracked, his fur rippling with shock. You would throw away your career, Magister Veloke said slowly, for a child not even of your species? Alara smiled, and there was something fierce in it. Something the council had perhaps forgotten humans were capable of. I would throw away 100 careers before I'd stand by and watch you condemn a child for being different. Ruin deserves better than your protocols. He deserves a chance. She looked down at the cub, whose fur now blazed with brilliant gold, the rarest color, the one associated with ancient Kirval legends of heroes and champions. And I'm going to make sure he gets it. Thekvar stepped forward then, his massive form trembling. For a long moment, he stared at Alara, at his son, at the council. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached up and unpinned his own insignia, the triple crescent that marked him as a battle lord of the Kirval fleets. I stand with the human, he rumbled, his voice thick with emotion. I stand with my son. The insignia clattered onto the floor beside Alara's. The council chamber erupted into chaos, but Alara barely heard it. She was too busy watching Ruin's face as he looked up at his father, as he realized he wasn't being abandoned, that two someones had chosen him over everything else, that he was worth it. As the session dissolved into arguments and procedural debates, Alara took Ruin's small hand in hers, and Thekvar placed his massive paw on his son's shoulder. Together, the three of them walked out of the tribunal chamber. Behind them, 2 insignias lay on the obsidian floor, abandoned. Ahead of them, the future was uncertain, uncharted, and completely undefined by any council protocol. And that, Alara thought with satisfaction, was exactly how humans preferred it.